Anxiety didn't arrive suddenly. It didn't appear because something went wrong inside you. For a long time, it wasn't even recognized as a problem. It blended in. It adapted. It learned how to stay. And by the time it was noticed, it already felt normal. The discomfort without a name. For many people, anxiety doesn't arrive as panic. It arrives as weight. A quiet pressure that sits in the chest, the shoulders, the back of the mind. Nothing dramatic happens. Life continues. Work continues. Conversations continue. Yet something feels off, and the strangest part is not being able to explain why. There is no clear danger, no obvious threat, no single moment that can be pointed to as the beginning. This discomfort often goes unnoticed for a long time. It blends into routine. It hides behind productivity, responsibility, and adaptation. And because it doesn't look like an emergency, it rarely receives attention. But if it isn't a clear problem, why does it feel so heavy? That question quietly lingers, waiting for something deeper to be acknowledged. Anxiety is often described as if it started somewhere specific. A bad experience, a stressful job, a difficult relationship. But for many, there was no single event, no sharp line separating before and after. It didn't arrive suddenly. It accumulated, slowly, quietly, almost politely. What makes this confusing is that nothing appears broken. Life may look functional from the outside, yet inside, there is a constant readiness, as if something could go wrong at any moment. If it wasn't caused by one moment, then the real question becomes harder. When did this state begin to feel normal? The human nervous system did not evolve in constant acceleration. It was shaped around rhythm, pause, and recovery. Periods of alertness were followed by periods of safety. Silence was not absence, it was information. Slowness was not inefficiency, it was regulation. In that original state, attention had limits. Fear appeared, did its job, and left. The body knew when to return to calm. If this was once the baseline, then something must have shifted. Not suddenly, not loudly, but enough to change what the mind began to expect from the world. Fear is protection, not failure. Fear was never meant to be a flaw. It was a signal, a brief response designed to protect, not dominate. When danger passed, the system reset. Fear did not linger. It did not narrate the future. It did not question identity. The problem began when fear stopped being temporary, when it no longer waited for danger to appear. At that point, protection slowly turned into tension, and tension, when repeated often enough, starts to feel like a permanent state rather than a response. The invisible training. No one sat down and taught the nervous system to stay alert. There was no instruction manual, no announcement. The training happened through repetition, through exposure, through constant adjustment to environments that rarely slowed down enough to signal safety. Over time, the body learned patterns before the mind did. It learned that quiet moments were unstable, that pauses might be wasted, that attention should remain open, scanning, ready. The question is no longer if this training happened, but who benefited from it. When alertness became normal, at some point, being alert stopped feeling unusual. It became the default. Muscles stayed slightly tense. Thoughts stayed slightly ahead of the present moment. Even rest carried an undertone of urgency, as if it needed justification. When alertness becomes constant, the body forgets how calm feels. Not because calm is impossible, but because it no longer feels familiar. And unfamiliar states are often interpreted as unsafe. The quiet acceleration. Life did not ask for permission before speeding up. Expectations multiplied. Information increased. Decisions became constant. Everything demanded attention, and very little allowed completion. The pace shifted, but the body was never consulted. What changed was not just speed, but recovery time. Moments that once allowed decompression were replaced by transitions. And without recovery, even manageable stress becomes cumulative. Comparison without conversation. Comparison did not arrive as jealousy. It arrived as measurement. Quiet, constant, automatic. Without discussion, the mind learned to evaluate itself against invisible standards. Progress, success, and worth became moving targets. This comparison rarely involved words. It happened through observation, inference, and assumption. And without conscious awareness, it shaped internal pressure far more effectively than any external demand. The loss of pause. Rest used to be neutral. It did not need explanation. It was not earned. It was necessary. But over time, rest began to feel conditional, justified only after productivity, acceptable only when exhaustion was visible. When rest feels wrong, the body never fully recovers. Even stillness becomes tense. And tension without release does not disappear, it settles. The myth of internal productivity. Eventually, productivity moved inward. It was no longer just about output, but about internal performance. Thinking ahead, optimizing reactions, managing emotions efficiently. Even inner life became something to handle correctly. This myth suggests that being constantly prepared is strength. But constant preparation without threat is not resilience. It is strain. The body learned first. The body does not wait for explanation. It adapts first and asks questions later. By the time anxiety becomes conscious, the body has already adjusted its baseline. Muscles tighten, breathing changes, attention narrows. Undoing that adaptation is difficult not because it is wrong, but because it was learned through survival logic, not choice. Anxiety as a signal. Anxiety is often treated as an enemy to defeat. But signals are not enemies. They are information. And information appears when something important is no longer aligned. If anxiety is a signal, then silencing it without understanding what trained it only pushes the message deeper. This was not a choice. No one chose to live this way. No one selected constant alertness as a lifestyle. It emerged through adaptation, not intention. Through systems that rewarded availability, speed, and endurance. Understanding this removes a quiet layer of blame. And blame, once removed, creates space for something else to be seen. If anxiety did not appear randomly, and if it was trained rather than chosen, then the problem may never have been individual. It may have been environmental, rhythmic, cultural. Perhaps the most important shift is not trying to control anxiety, but understanding what taught it to stay. Because understanding changes more than force ever could.